Okay, so first, what does a perfect essay in the Junior Prize look like? So it's got to be clear, and it's got to be persuasive. And the best way to do that is to just make sure that the person reading it at all points in the essay knows what you are saying. From the introduction, it's absolutely crucial that they know exactly what your argument is, and that if you stop them after your introduction, they would be able to tell you, this is your argument straight away. Um, okay, that's really, really crucial. And then persuasive just means that your argument could persuade someone. It doesn't mean it has to be the strongest possible argument, but it means that your argument after you've shown your evidence seems plausible, seems understandable and reasonable to someone. So your introduction might be persuasive or not, but someone might not be fully persuaded after the introduction because they might have a very, very different view to you. But after the introduction, they should know what you're going to argue. And then by the end of the essay, after you've shown them the evidence to support your view, then they should hopefully be persuaded. The argument should be ordered in a logical manner and a thoughtful manner. Thoughtful just means that instead of just throwing down your ideas on paper, you've thought, how can my reader understand my argument best? What is the best way for me to present that argument? So you can think about it as like a lawyer in a court of law. They don't just go in and start listing off randomly the reasons why their client is innocent, for instance. They say, they do it in an ordered manner. They say, okay, first of all, let's deal with the claim that my client is guilty of robbery. And then they respond. The first reason they're not guilty is this. The second is that. And then they might say, let's deal with the claim that my client was armed, for instance. You see, so they break stuff up so that it's very, very clear. No one gets confused about what they're talking about. And it's similar with a good essay. You need to be very careful, and that's why this session helps you do that a lot. It needs to be supported by evidence or texts. For the Junior Prize, there'll be less academic texts and more evidence. In the main prize, then they're expecting you to read a bit more complex material. And you should be trying to reference some texts. I will recommend some, but you can still do really well if you just talk about events and evidence, though it's still good if you reference the source where you read about it, and the source should be a reliable one, like BBC News, for instance. And then there does need to be some engagement with other writers' ideas, okay? So you don't have to specifically say, this scholar or this academic or this journalist says this. At the Junior Prize, you don't need to do that, but you do need to engage with what other people might argue, or other people have argued, or other people in your class argue. Again, you don't say, my friend thinks this. You say, one could argue that this view is more appropriate. So essentially what you're doing is responding to potential other views, but it's really important that you respond to at least one counter argument. Okay, so views that do not agree with yours, and you need to deal with them. And you don't just say they're rubbish, you need to take them seriously and say, yes, this counter argument has some strength and there is some evidence maybe to support it. However, my argument has more evidence, and that is why you should believe me or be persuaded by my argument more. Then it also has to have a high degree of accuracy, okay? And that's why it's so important to check everything you're saying and check that it's factually correct. Because if you make a few errors, if you say this country was the first one to have schools or something without being specific about it, then if the essay is not accurate, then you won't be able to score that highly. And then it just needs to be presented really, really well, because first impressions are really, really important, and get people to check your writing. Your sentences shouldn't be too long, for instance, because then it's difficult for people to understand what they're saying. And then reference. So if you are talking about specific evidence or events, you should have a footnote which explains where you got the source from. And you can look at past essays if you're not entirely sure about how to do that.